Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another live session. As always, thank you so much for being here. Always love showing up for the community every Tuesday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. So let's take a moment to just warm into our session a little bit. Let me know that you can see and hear me okay. Absolutely, let me know where you're joining from. We have this awesome global audience. So definitely let me know where you're showing up from. Um, so as always, we are going to go. Brad, you're my hero. Audio and video are good. Awesome. Thank you so much. So as always, we take very similar steps in these live sessions. As you're coming into this session, it's really important to know in our downtime, in our slow time, we'll talk a little bit more about fall 2024 hiring predictions. September to November is typically a very, very busy hiring time, but this is a general Q&A session, so I am happy to answer any and all questions that come up, so don't be shy to ask them. Let's go backwards. So yesterday's video, I had done a video on positivity, but it had been almost 6 years ago, so I wanted to do a little bit of a refresher video on that. So if you haven't not all right, fumbling on my words early today. If you have not had a chance to check out yesterday's video, please check it out. There is so much power and positivity in the way we speak in interviews, but it's not just about the words, it's about our body language, it's about how we carry ourselves, everything. So created a foundational video there. It's not too long, it's around 10 minutes, so should be really powerful and impactful. As you're coming into the session today, you'll see I have a banner up, 20% off of the AI tool and interview mastery course. I'm going to start pushing the AI tool a little bit more in these lives because we just opened up the free trial to 7 days. So you can practice an unlimited amount of questions for 7 days. So if you or you know anybody who's open to work or looking for a job, just tell them, go to app.practiceinterviews.com, jump on there. It's free. We don't take any credit card information, no subscription information, to just get on there and start practicing. And if you like it and you want to get a paid subscription, that's fantastic, obviously. So 20% off the paid versions of the AI tool and the interview mastery course today. In addition, I'm still doing one-on-one practice interviews, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one strategy sessions. That's resume, LinkedIn, networking strategies, etc. What else do I want to say? Well, if this is your first time here, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com. If you go to that site, we have tons of free resources. Scroll down to the bottom, check out our free downloadable resources. We have a free Slack community. I officially last week hit 100 blog posts. So the blog posts are good if you just want to, if you're a reader, if you like that, if you like going in and reading blogs. Again, I've tried to stay really, really active on the blog posts. I think they provide value, and actually Google Analytics tells me that they do. Okay, I think that's it. If you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every single Tuesday. New long form original content on Mondays. Trying to do more of a shorts push, as I keep mentioning, and the last couple of weeks I've only done one. So this week the goal is to do more, as always. Let's dive into questions. As we hit our downtime, we'll talk a little bit about fall 2024 hiring predictions. My recruiter reached out last week about a PgM role at Google. I interviewed, second round, to let me know that the conversations are going really well and I need to give the G&L interview. Absolutely. What can I make out of this? And is there something specific I need to prepare for this other than the content on your channel? Well, just knowing that you're going into the G&L interview, I mean, really, like, I continue to highlight the same things. The trend I've seen over the last couple of years is that these questions lean heavily, heavily, heavily on decision making. Decisions you've made in the past that you would change, decisions that have been made through collaborative efforts, lots of decision making, and then in correlation, collaboration and inclusivity. These interviews tend to lean slightly behavioral, but
the mix of questions is behavioral and hypothetical. So really be prepared for both. And so much of that is interviewer style. I always mention that in my time at Google, I only asked hypothetical questions. I had the option to ask behavioral questions, I just didn't do it. So your interviewer can lean one way or another based on preference. So just always keep that in mind. Just want to go back to this, Brad, my savior. Thank you so much for letting me know you can see and hear me. It's always those warm and fuzzies. Yeah, I think this is. I was looking at the numbers. I think it's over 170 lives now, but it just you always want. You don't want to be talking to yourself, which yeah, sometimes I do, but I appreciate it. Okay, how should I prepare for an APMM Google Bold internship? So APMM is an associate product marketing manager. What I tell anybody who's interviewing for any internship role is it's going to lean a little bit more behavioral typically. Typically, at that level, it's going to be more tell me about a time when, give me an example of. It does not mean that you will not get hypothetical questions. You will, but it will lean behavioral. And so, great examples of, work that you've done within your classes, group projects, etc., will be great examples to draw off of. Look, it's a product marketing manager. Again, it's associate role, but you have to understand some of the nuances of product marketing. So anything you can do to research and kind of up your knowledge in that space is going to be helpful as well. All right. Thanks for joining from the ATL. I had my last round of virtual on-site interview last week. Okay. Today I received a message asking me to verify my name. Is that a good sign? I think so. Anytime we're asked to verify any information, that can be good. Specifically, if you're verifying your name, my best guess is they are just trying to confirm the spelling so that they can bring it into a background check. Again, these are massive assumptions on my end, but it's a good sign. Anytime we're asked for more information, we're still waiting on feedback, it's a sign that we're at least still in consideration. So, yeah, really, really important. But keep us posted and good luck. And just a quick note. I always like to tell people when we do job applications, like let's make sure that data is clean and crisp from our name to our address to our past work experience with the specific titles we had at the company, the specific months and years. It's when we get to the resume and LinkedIn that we can be a little like we can put our titles that are a little closer to the actual work we're doing. We can put years instead of months, etc. Hope that helps. Hey, Jeff, your videos have been very helpful. Thank you so much. Absolutely. I applied for an L3 program manager role at Google, and I'm waiting to hear how my interviews went. The band for this role is 100 to 144K, and I want to anchor high if I receive the offer as you have suggested. Is there an amount I shouldn't go above in equity, also relocation bonus? So your relocation bonus is non-negotiable, so you don't have to worry about that. In terms of anchoring high, like the band, that's the base salary band. Even in New York or the Bay, which are going to be the two highest paying markets, you will not see that 144K number from a base salary perspective. How high can you go? Well, it really depends on location. But if I were negotiating or anchoring for an L3 role, again, if we're in a more expensive market, I'd probably be going into the twos for sure. I think total comp, well, I'll have you come back to me. Instead of me doing the guesswork, tell me the location and then we can talk numbers. Level and role are really helpful. The third detail is always location. That can help me help you. So hang out with us and let us know the location, please. That would be great. Absolutely. Thanks for being here. I love when people show up and contribute. You interviewed for a SWE role, had your technical rounds in the July 2nd week, but I just had a technical round, but just technical rounds, no GNL. The recruiter said that if I T matched, then you'll have a GNL role with the hiring manager. Okay. I got the T match last week and I have a round with the HM. Is it normal to have the GNL with the hiring manager? I'm confused. Also, would my HC be done already? My verdict was hire, strong hire, hire. My role was for L3. Okay, awesome. So with the hiring manager, there are no rules. Okay. Now, again, in this particular group, they may set the rules that the hiring manager always does the GNL, but typically the hiring manager can do the RRK, the GCA, the GNL, the presentation round if one's required, or no interviews. They can just do something really informal. Now, them doing the T match, then the GNL, that's an interesting approach. But hey, like you are and have made it to that stage. So it sounds like everything is going really well. And I wouldn't worry too much about it. Hiring managers can really pick what interview they do. And actually, if you think about it, as a hiring manager, the GNL, it's really more of a general interview, and they may like to do that one more to learn a little bit more about you and, again, your decision making specifically. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any additional questions. Hey, Jeff, any insight around Google Cloud's FSR hiring in EMEA? Don't see that much job offers since 2023 layoffs. Thanks. EMEA's been weird. Yeah, I mean, that's the only, I mean, it's weird, strange, slow, whatever we want to call it. And obviously my pulse is what I see from my client base. And, historically, I've had a lot of clients in Dublin and London and Zurich and Warsaw and like all these areas, Paris, and they just kind of disappeared and haven't really come back. It's not that I don't get clients in those areas, but it's just way, way less than it's historically been. And the feedback I get from the community is EMEA's not really hiring that much in tech. So I would just bucket the FSR role, that's a field sales rep for anybody that doesn't know, into that group. And it's just been super, super slow. So I don't have any additional data. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't be hiring more in EMEA. It's obviously a pretty big market overall. So yeah, again, not great feedback for you, but I haven't heard anything about those specific roles. At least, yeah, it's been at least a year or so. Hey, Jeff, did you work in Pops? Are any tips on their finance team? I have an interview for their FP&A team and would love your insight. I did work, when you're a recruiter, you work in Pops, which is people operations. People operations. I can't believe it, but I forgot the last P. I don't know what that P was. Yeah, we just called it people operations or Pops for short. When we talk about the finance team and specifically FP&A, I mean, I want you to really default back to your strengths in that area, right? Like anything that has to do with doing analysis in the financial space, that's going to be your default mode. Obviously, great examples. And then get ready for ways that you're thinking about if this finance role sits within the greater Pops organization, start to build some assumptions of where you'd have to look at budgetary items in regards to hiring. It's just something really important because a finance role sitting within Pops is pretty interesting. If you want to come back and tell us more, I can maybe be more helpful. But sounds great. Hey, Jeff, I have a bachelor's degree that I got in my born country, but now I live in another country. I haven't had a chance to convalidate. I'm not sure it here. Could that affect my Google interview process? So when you go from one country to another, it really shouldn't matter. Education is not nearly as important as many people think for Google or really any company anymore. I mean, yes, some companies are going to be rigid about it, but for the most part, we're getting farther and farther away from degrees being really important. So, what this will do is it will just essentially slow down the background check process. If you have successful interviews, when they have to go across countries, it just makes things a little slower on the back end. It's a few days. It's not anything earth shattering. So this shouldn't affect your Google interview process at all. I hope that helps. Pittsburg. Okay, let's take a step back. We're trying to figure out a really strong anchor for a level 3 program manager in the Pittsburgh office. So Pittsburgh, what do we know about Pittsburgh in the US? Low cost of living. So with the low cost of living, there's a lower cost of labor as well. So, and just when we compare Pittsburgh to the other cities across the US, it is much more affordable than almost every other city. So with a lower cost of living, you're going to fall at the lower end of that salary band. Probably in the I'm thinking maybe like 110 to 115 area on the base salary. But let's say 110 there. Your equity is going to be in the 100s probably total. So maybe 140K in equity. And then probably not a sign-on for an L3 program manager, but maybe like a 5 or 10K sign-on. I would definitely be anchoring in the high 1s to low 2s. I think if you go into the 2s, it's okay. I would think that the total comp for year 1 is going to fall 165, 170 year 1, maybe a little higher. But just because it's Pittsburgh, it's the total comp is going to be lower than other markets. I hope that helps. Leet code has difficulty levels in its questions. What kind of questions should I expect for interviews? Easy or medium? Okay, I'm just looking at some of your other questions. Okay, so with Leet code, I think you just, like any practice, you build it up, right? So start with the easier questions. If you feel like, hey, those are a breeze for me, then move on to the medium and hard questions. When preparing for interviews, you really want to focus in on making it as challenging as possible for you. If you are able to solve for difficult questions, hey, that's to your benefit, right? If you can solve those questions and then you get into the interview and they're easy or medium, you're going to be setting yourself up for success. But what I hear about Leet code as a non-technical person is just that it's great, and spend as much time on there as you can. I hope that advice helps. Let me know if you have more questions in that specific area. Okay, we tackled that one. How to explain gaps in our career? Well, and this, if you haven't had a chance to look at yesterday's video on positivity, I just would push and say we have to explain gaps in our career in a really positive manner. It was an opportunity to do this. It was a chance to do that. I'm really grateful for that time I had to learn X, Y, or Z. So when we explain gaps, we explain them with positivity, not negativity. If we talk about the gaps being really difficult and hard and challenging, we're bringing our interviewer down. So we want to try and find that silver lining and think about the positive items that happened while we had that gap in employment. That's the best advice I can give. People operations positions. I'm not sure I understand this last one, Rocky. So if you want to come back and explain a little bit more. I mean, with Leet code, that would be a technical gaps, but is this explaining career gaps with people operations? If so, again, same mindset. Let me know if I can provide more clarity. Thanks for answering these questions. Can you provide some clarity on hiring committee? I was told by my recruiter that my interview results are valid for the next 18 months. Hiring committee is a group of your peers who review your resume, your interview feedback, and potentially a statement of support from the hiring manager. And they're assessing everything. They're taking a look at the big picture, current interviews, past work experience. They're looking, really diving into the feedback. And then they come up with one of three results. Yes, let's move forward. That moves into the executive phase and ultimately, very, very commonly to the offer stage. There can be a hold, which means they need more information and want to do 1 to 2 additional interviews. And then there's a no. Very, very hard to overcome a no in hiring committee, but it's just a group of your peers getting together and talking about your case. For SWEs in particular, usually more people in hiring committee. I'd throw more in there to just kind of take a chance, and sometimes I'd have success and sometimes I wouldn't. Whereas for more niche down roles, you'll see less people in HC. But yes, they're increasing the length of time that our interview feedback is valid. It used to be 12 months. It sounds like in some cases they're now extending that to 18 months, which is good, which means you'd have an opportunity to maybe join in the next 18 months if it didn't work out right now. Hey, Jeff, I just received a rejection email that seems automated, but it was sent by an actual recruiter. Does this indicate anything? Is it a good sign? Any tips on how to leverage it? Size of company, 10,000 plus employees. So I would not say, I would not lean that this is positive. Rejection emails, recruiters all the time, especially in big companies, they're going to be the ones to reject you, but they're going to have a template that they've saved and they're just going to send an automated message, which I don't particularly care for, especially if you've been in the interview process. I prefer that they call you. And a lot of people hate that advice, but the reality is that if I call to reject you, I can get feedback on how I performed, how the interviewers performed, etc. But not uncommon to receive this rejection, but there's really, I mean, you can leverage it by responding, but will they get back to you is a real unknown. Yeah, you are welcome. Good luck. Hey, Jeff, I have a marketing background and I just interviewed for an account strategist role. I ended up withdrawing as the role was more sales than marketing after talking with the recruiter today. Okay. She said that there is a slowdown in hiring for marketing roles. Should I continue working towards a marketing role at Google even though there aren't any good or mid-entry level positions open? Yeah, so this is tricky, right? So let's just talk through it. And I always think that's funny when I say let's talk through it because I'm always just talking to myself. But basically, I think that one of the items I want anybody to think about is I want you to focus on roles that are going to make you happy, you're going to be successful in. But I also sometimes get a little concerned when people withdraw from the process when they have an opportunity at a company like Google because of the value of the brand. Like, get in the door, maybe you can learn some things in that role and then do an internal transfer to a marketing role. But if they're thin on marketing roles, there's really nothing you can do about that. And again, if you're not interested in an account strategist role, I wouldn't do it. But there's obviously opportunities and learnings. Again, the pay is going to be good and the brand is going to be priceless. So I'm not saying that you should reconsider, but maybe just something to think through. I hope that helps. Hey, Jeff, I'm well versed in the concepts, topics which are related to the job role, and I've scored really well in those subjects. I passed other unrelated subjects after a time. How do these things affect my career? Rocky, let's go back to this. So Okay, so being well versed and well rounded in your career is great. I love people with diverse backgrounds. I think it adds an incredibly unique lens to a role, and I'll always hire somebody who's tried different things to kind of figure out where they want to go in your career. I mean, so to answer this question really briefly, I mean, I think it has a positive impact. Yeah, I hope that helps. And I'm just going to go to this one. No, I was saying pops means that. Okay, so I'm not sure. I'm not sure on this one, Rocky. But if you have any additional questions, I'm happy to help. Hey Jeff, thanks for this. In the market with a lot of large layoffs, what is your prediction on the average amount of time for ICs to find a new job? Ooh, I mean, I think okay, it's a good question. I don't really want to answer it, but I will because we're here and we're chatting. I think give yourself at least 3 to 6 months. Anything in the 9-month to 12-month time frame right now, totally common and not something that I want anyone to worry too much about. Saying that with the understanding that, hey, like we need to make money. We have families to feed. We have ourselves to feed. We're trying to keep a roof over our heads in a lot of instances, but 3 to 6 months, definitely, and 9 to 12 months is okay too, as long as you can make it and hang on. I do and continue to think that the future state of jobs is going to be rougher. And that's not to have a negative landscape or perspective. I think everybody knows I'm a pretty positive person. I just want to get ready for automation. And so I even did I think it was yesterday, I did a LinkedIn poll about like, well, what are your fears about the current job market? Is it just recession? Is it AI and automation, return to office, et cetera? And I still constantly believe that people are ignoring the fact that AI and automation is going to create massive job loss and removal of jobs from the market. And that's not a gloom and doom, it's just a reality. And so I just want everybody to have some awareness around that and prepare for that. But in this time, if you're looking for a job, apply, sure, because it's low hanging fruit, but network, do everything you can to get referred in. The applying game in today's economic landscape is incredibly challenging. It's very, very hard to stand out when applying right now. So I hope that helps. Hey, Jeff, I recently interviewed I think I need to get glasses. I can't read that, but for a technical program manager role, it's been a while. I have not heard back from them yet. How do you suggest to wait? But how long do you suggest to wait before asking about a decision? Now, usually what I always tell people is we use the 5 business day rule. If you haven't heard back in 5 business days, that's a long period of time. That's enough to give them the space to interview, make some decisions. After 5 business days, we reach out, and we always reach out with gratitude, graciousness, kindness. Hey, I hope you're having a fantastic day. Just wanted to check in on X role. I hope all is well. Look forward to hearing back from you. Thanks. And that's it. But we just want to make sure that those messages have the right tone, because tone's critical when doing written communication when we try to follow up. But 5 business days. It's long-winded. I get it. Thank you. I usually see rejection emails from a no reply address. So I had a bit of hope with this one. I appreciate the realistic insight. Yeah, and again, at a big company, typically if you've had any interaction over the phone, via video, again with a recruiter, they're going to be the ones to send you that rejection email. And it should come from them because they should be managing your application in their applicant tracking system, sending out that email and then closing out your application for that specific role. So 10,000 plus company, I would expect more often than not, once you've had an interaction with the recruiter, for that rejection to come from the recruiter. And yeah, sorry that it's not super positive or as positive as you want, but you can always follow up with them. You can always reply and say, hey, I'd love any specific feedback or even generic feedback that you can provide on my interview performance if you did get to the interview stage. Something I always recommend. Okay, we hit the 30s. At the 30s, I take 30 seconds to hit you up on my services, and then we'll get right back to business. If you use the coupon code FALL 2024 today, 20% off of our AI tool and the interview mastery course. If you are not ready to purchase the tool, we have changed the free trial to 7 days with unlimited questions that you can answer. Does it have all the bells and whistles at the free trial stage? It does not. There's some things that we've removed and hid behind the paywall, but you can still get in there and check it out. 20% off of our interview mastery course. Both these offers are valid today. Still doing one-on-one interview, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one strategy sessions. That's resume, LinkedIn, and networking. If this is your first time here, by the way, my name is Jeff H. Sipe. My business is practiceinterviews.com. We have a ton of free resources on that website. I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday, new original content, long form every Monday. If you like what I'm doing today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, consider subscribing. All right, let's get right back to it. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. So the FP&A role is with their people operations team. Thanks for your videos and advice. One last question. Besides RK, GCA, and GNL, how else can we impress our interviewers? Yeah, I mean, again, I would think for an FP&A role within people ops, it would probably just be those 3 interviews. So how else can you impress them? Well, for Google, like, you don't need to send thank you notes. So that's not really a way to impress them. But you can impress them, obviously, by following the standard items, bringing great structure, organization, and level of detail to your answers, and then asking great questions at the end. I know if you've been here before, you've heard me say this a million times, but the biggest way that people like other people is when they get to talk about themselves. This is not me making anything up. This is just science and psychology. So what are we talking about here? A great way to impress them is to ask them about themselves at the end of an interview. What do you love about Google? What do you love about your position? What do you love about this team? To the extent that you can share, what's the coolest program, project, or initiative that you're working on right now? Probably not going to have more time than for 3 or 4 questions. Love, coolest. Then you get out of the interview and they're like, oh, I really love Ricardo. It's a trick, but it's also a good way for you to figure out, are they saying positive things? Are they able to talk about what they love about their position, the company, what they're working on? Or are they saying negative things? Because that could be a red flag. But we get them talking about themselves at the end. It is a killer strategy and it works. Most people don't impress interviewers by saying, what's the biggest challenge I'm going to face? What's the hardest part about the job? What's going to be a failure point for me? And that's negative. So we keep the end of interviews very positive. That's one way to impress them and increase your likability. Many people are expecting that there will be a global recession coming, which will be the worst in human history. What are your expectations? All right, we're doing it. We're going in. We're going big. If I were to predict the future state of jobs, I think we're going to see an evolution of AI and automation that we can't quite visualize or imagine sitting here in August of 2024, but it's going to happen much faster than people think. This is, again, just my very limited lens and opinion, but I think that the job market's going to get much harder over time, and then we need to figure that out. So how do we work within that tougher job market? How do we leverage AI and automation to create brand new jobs? And that's what's happened throughout the history of time. So there's lots of opportunities to make life easier. But yeah, I think the future state of just work, and not just in the US, but globally, it's really going to change when roles can be fully automated. And there's a lot of positions right now that exist today that will not exist in 3 years, in my opinion. And there's some jobs today that exist today that I think we could automate out today and have it be done better, like recruiters, for example. I think we could totally automate that job today with the tools available, and that candidates would have a better experience working with AI and automation than recruiters. I'm tough on recruiters. I recruited for over 15 years, so I feel like I have the opportunity to say that, but it's a big question. Um, so we got to adapt, we got to adjust, we got to be prepared. I think there's a little lack of preparation of what's going to happen with AI and automation. Hey, thanks for being here. AP, great having you here. Love it when people show up. And even the highs and hellos, if you're just here and you just want to say, hey, Jeff, what's up? That's great. I love everybody showing up, and I love showing up for this community. It's like this. Okay. I have a CS grad degree. I'm good at algorithms and data structures and scored well in those subjects. But subjects like networking, I cleared those subs after a very long time. Okay. I mean, as a CS, having a CS degree is obviously great. And algorithms and data structures are a big way that companies assess talent for software engineers and job interviews. So that's great too. Hey, if you're not interested in networking, I would say, yeah, don't focus in that area. Focus in the areas that you're good at and you enjoy. I hope that helps. You're observing an interesting situation with positions on product management roles in Meta and Google. They're publishing set of PM positions and delist them in 2 to 3 days, while others 6 to 12 weeks. What does that mean? Why are they doing it? It's not enough to get a referral. So my best guess, Stefan, is that product management roles are going to be posted and get pulled down pretty quickly because the amount of interest and the talent level for those roles is extremely high. So they're probably just getting totally inundated and crushed. I think there's also probably something on the application side where a lot of people who aren't really product managers are trying to get into those roles where it's really not valid. So yeah, it's going to be tricky. And if we talk about like compensation, I just want to bring this up, between product at Meta and Google, there's no comparison. Google's product roles are going to pay way better than Meta. Just a data point. Now, what does this mean? Why are they doing this? Yeah, and it's yes, it's based on demand. And I think, yeah, it's really tough because it pops up and it's like, it's tough to get a referral in that very, very short period of time. So anything you can do to have your notifications turned on, or anything you can do to speed that up, is going to be helpful. I know that's probably not great feedback. That's what I got. Hope that helps. Hey, Jeff, post my interviews. Recruiter checked on my expectation for Google level for Google level 6 role. Based on shared range, I shared 10% as expectation while offer pending. Do I have more negotiation scope? Yeah, so I think I recently just did a short on this, which you can check out, but it's always okay to reset expectations, right? An L6 Google role, depending on your market, is going to pay significantly. And so if we went in with a certain expectation, we want to reset. After learning more about the position and speaking with members of the team, I need to reset my expectations. And you don't need to say anything else. My year one expectation is 462, 350. And then you drop that big anchor, and then they come back, and you go from there. But resetting expectations, yeah, it's nerve-wracking, but the reality is that I'd rather have you reset if you didn't go big enough, as opposed to not resetting at all. Again, I don't know that that's exactly the scenario we're talking about, but I hope that feedback's helpful. And if you have more questions, let me know. Thanks, Jeff, for all your videos. I heard the job market is going to be better in October of 2024. What's your opinion? I mean, that's pretty specific. I mean, typically, and the reason why I wanted to bring in the subject of fall 2024 hiring predictions is typically in big tech, what I've seen, and like I think we'd remove the companies that don't do a fiscal and calendar year, like a Microsoft. Their fiscal year is like July through July, or however that works. But like, the Googles and some of the other companies, for those companies, historically, January through March is a good hiring time, but for big tech that do the fiscal and calendar year at the same time, September through November historically has actually been the best 3 months. So seeing that prediction of October being a really good time, yeah, absolutely. Typically it has been, and yeah, I want to think positively too. Like, sure that this is all gonna move forward and be great, and like things will pick up. It's just a little bit of an unknown. I still see a slower fall hiring season and just slower hiring moving forward in general, but I'm ready to be optimistic as well. Good question. Mr. Corey, it's been a while. You know where to find me though. I'm always here and always showing up, and thanks for joining us. And hey, if you have any pulse on what's going on in the job market, or you want to share any of your insights on what you're seeing, happy to take that data. If you're just here to say, hey, thanks for being here. Always good to see you. How should I approach leveraging process improvements I've made in my job to help with my promotion? Apologies if this isn't the right place to ask. So it's always the right place. Anything and everything is on the table. Okay. I'm here to help with anything related to job search or what's going on with your job. Like, everything's on the table. So it's totally cool question. And remember, with your questions, there's such a strong chance that somebody else who's watching has similar questions. And that's why I love, and I say, just throw it all out there. Somebody else is having the same challenge, I'm sure. How should I approach leveraging process improvements I've made in my job to help with my promotion? So when we talk about two things on the job, promotion and pay raises, there are two incredibly critical items to keep in mind. So the first is, I said two critical items. Well, let's start with one critical item. The most critical item is, it is two critical items. It's communication and a plan. So what do I mean? So often we are thinking about promotions or pay raises based on all the work we've done, but we haven't really communicated our wants, our needs with leadership. So what am I talking about? If I want to get promoted or I want a pay raise, I'm going to sit down with my direct manager. I'm going to schedule an off meeting that's not our one-to-one and say, I want to talk about a promotion. I want to talk about creating a plan to get promoted, or like, am I at promotion based on all my process improvements? And if not, can we identify 2 or 3 items that if I were to complete them in the next 3 to 6 months, they'd lead to promotion? Can we do those things that if I do them in the next 3 to 6 months, it could lead to a pay raise? Come up with a plan. And you should pre-plan to identify what you believe are 2 or 3 strong items that with those contributions could get you to that place. Without a plan, without a plan and then communicating that plan with leadership, we just have no idea how they're thinking. I once went into leadership with a plan to get promoted. And I outlined everything I had done, and then they told me my performance was terrible. So again, the reason why it's so important is we want to make sure we're aligned, and that starts with communication, and then creating the plan allows you something to address. So if your lead, Sue, is like, well, hey, I like those 3 things, and let's add this 4th thing. If you do those in the next 3 months, you'll get promoted. Then you do those things, and Sue says, sorry, we can't promote you now, even though she promised it. You probably want to leave the company or start looking for other jobs, right? So when we get aligned by communicating and having a plan, it's really, really impactful, and it usually leads to a promotion, a pay raise, or companies not following their obligations, and ultimately us leaving, where they end up providing us an offer for a promotion or any sort of counter offer to stay. And at that point, you're already gone. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have more questions. Thank you, Jeff. What tips do you have for staying in touch with Google Recruiter, keeping a relationship with them? I don't want to come off as annoying. Okay, this is a great question. So I say, I'd love to stay in touch with you. Can you please let me know an appropriate cadence? At a minimum, I'd like to touch base with you once a quarter, but is more often okay? Is it okay if I just send you an email to check in once a month? Do you prefer email, text, phone call? So we're trying to figure out their communication preference and the timeline, but a safe bet is quarterly. If they say, hey, I'll check in with you, now just take control and at least check in once a quarter. It's just to remind them you're out there. You can provide updates. You can provide a role or 2 that you think you're a fit for. When providing roles to recruiters, I typically recommend 1 at a time. If we provide a lot of roles to them at a time, like it just overwhelms them and they won't help us. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have more questions. That's helpful. Thanks, Jeff. I will check out your video and would reach out to you for a one-on-one consultation. Cool. Obviously, I'm here to help with the negotiations. You know, I've been doing this for so long that negotiations, especially at the L6 level, like you just don't want to leave money on the table. The ranges for L6 they're crazy. So you definitely want to make sure you're pushing the envelope as much as you possibly can. I'm hitting the top of the budget for a role. However, it's not close to my expectations. Is there anything I can do? So, yeah, Bruno, let's get a little bit more context. You're hitting the top of the budget for the role. So budget for the role that you're currently sitting in, budget for the role of a role you're looking to get hired for. Come back. Give me a little bit more context. Let me make sure I'm really providing you with a really good, helpful answer, please. 3 years ago, I was reached out to by a Google recruiter with who I built a very strong relationship and had progress with during interviews, but he was laid off this year. Okay. How could I find and establish such relationships for product management roles in the EU? What would be the best channel and approach? It's always really tough when we build that strong relationship and then that relationship disappears. Recruiters are not, unless we have an established relationship, trying to build cold relationships with recruiters, meaning like reaching out on LinkedIn or, it usually doesn't work. So, the best ways that I recommend are to try and find people in leadership roles in product at Google in the EU. And then we're going to go into what most people know is my networking strategy. You're going to find Sue Smith, hiring manager for product management. She sits in London, let's say. And you reach out to Sue and you say, Sue, I found this really interesting article about the cross section of product management and AI that I wanted to share with you. Have a great day. And we just give. And we reach out to people who appear to be in product management leadership roles at Google. that giving strategy could potentially open doors, but trying to rebuild with recruiters, that's just really tough. I've never really seen that as successful, and here's why. It's just they have to filter through the crap, basically, and they just get hit up so much all the time. I mean, it can be 100 LinkedIn invitations in a day, tons of messages, and it was just you're having to fight against the people who are not strategic and just throw anything out there, just hoping for results. So a lot of recruiters at these big tech companies shut down because they just get so crushed. It's just something to note. Jeff, after getting a referral, how much do they usually take to review your application? Yeah, so I want to just say, okay, so this was, we're just confirming that it was Google. There's no set timeline. Ideally, they should be reviewing it within a few days, but there's no set timeline for review. There's really no criteria. It used to be that referrals had to be followed up within a week, but I just haven't seen that trend happening for years. But when I was there, we had to follow up with all referrals within a max of 5 business days. But I just haven't seen that as a trend for so long. I've just seen that there's a lot of ambiguity behind it. You can always push your referrer to check what's going on in the system. So that's the best recommendation I have. When in negotiations with FAANG, how do you bring up giving up a ton of unvested RSU and annual bonus? It's coming up in the next few months. Is it okay to ask for a massive sign-on cash and stock? So if you, let's jump around a little bit. So you're always, if you're going from like a public company that offers equity or RSUs, you're always going to be giving up RSUs when you leave. Always. I mean, it's just very, very common. So they may not be as willing to consider that because it's just something that people do. Now, if you have a $50K annual bonus coming up, but it's not coming up till December or January, and it's going to be $50K, then absolutely you can ask for that in the sign-on. And hey, of course you can ask for more sign-on bonus to cover the RSUs you're leaving behind. They usually won't cover those. I mean, that's just an FYI, but ask for everything. Yeah, absolutely. I'm leaving a ton of money on the table. I need a 100K sign-on, a 200K sign-on, or whatever. Of course, we're not going to say it in that way. We're going to say, is there an ability for you to provide a sign-on bonus based on the fact that I'm walking away from quite a few RSUs and my annual bonus that's going to pay out in December, January, etc. So definitely something I want you to be bringing up, and something that you can leverage sometimes to especially get a good sign-on bonus. Let me know if you have more questions. Okay. It is for a role I'm currently interviewing for. HM said it's very close to the top of the budget assigned for this role. Okay, so Bruno, let's just go back just for context. You're hitting the top of the budget. It's not close to your expectations. Maybe it's not the right role. If it's not even close to your expectations, maybe it's not the right position. Maybe they're undervaluing you. You can always ask, hey, is there a precedent to go over budget? Are you able to get creative in terms of equity, in terms of sign-on? Now, again, if your point of contact's the hiring manager, you're going to have to directly have those conversations with them. Or if it's a recruiter, you can have your conversations with them, but you can always ask. But if it's severely not aligned from a budgetary standpoint, it just may not be the right fit. I know that's not super helpful or exciting for me to tell you, but just my 2 cents. Where in the process does HC come in? My verdict for L3 SWE is, okay, I feel like we covered this already. Yeah, we covered this already. I'll quickly respond again. There's no need to repeat questions. I'll hit up every question, but um, you have your G&L round. It would happen after your G&L round. It hasn't been done yet. Okay, so you have to complete all the interviews before going to HC. I appeared for the interview for a role at Google. The recruiter told me the interviewer won't expect you for the exact commands. So I prepared that way, and the interviewer kept asking commands. Commands. Can you talk me through exact commands? So what should I do in this case? What kind of commands are we talking about? Maybe this is something, again, technical that I'm less familiar with. Tell me more, please. Anthony. Okay, so we're responding to. Okay, we're responding to Anthony here. Usually fast in my 3 to 5 years of experience, but I got a GCE, passed it, and hear back from them. No, yes, and no, no. Okay, so yeah, again, with referrals, we always want to push for referrals. Okay, so they're great, and it's something that we want, and referrers can, especially at a company like a Google, can track. You can track where their referred person is in the process. So that's great. So we can push on our referrers. If they're willing to refer us, we just need to make sure that we're pushing as much as possible. So yeah, that's really all we can do. We can't control everything else. Okay, cool. Yes, it was technical. I wanted to provide that feedback to the recruiter that the interviewer was expecting something different. And we need to provide that feedback to the recruiter. Because if we go back and we say, I applied for the interview for a role at Google, and the recruiter told me the interviewer will not expect you for the exact commands. And we just want to reiterate, and again, we want to say this in really nice and soft tone. My expectation going into this interview was that I wouldn't be asked for exact commands. And that's actually all the interviewer did. Based on the feedback that you provided to me pre-interview and based on what the interviewer covered, are you willing to give me another opportunity, give me another interview, right? And if they're not, this is one of those items where Google will provide you a feedback form and you can really crush your recruiter, and should. If they're giving you bad advice that's setting you up to fail and then not taking ownership for it, it's really, really important. Okay. So very, very tricky scenario. I'm really sorry to hear that happened. Recruiters can sometimes set false expectations or incorrect expectations. And again, that's one of the reasons why I recommend automating that role. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Just make sure you're definitely communicating with them your experience. Had to redo an interview of one. My recruiter initiated it based on the interviewer and my feedback about a particular call. It's better to articulate. Always better to share. For anybody who's on this live right now, if you have a bad interview experience, worst case, it's bad. Interviewer was bad. You don't get the job. But if we don't provide feedback, what we're doing is we're not paying it forward. We're not allowing that interviewer to potentially get feedback, be pulled out of the process, allow them to improve. We're just saying, it didn't work out for us. They were terrible. Next person's probably going to have a terrible interview too. Let's pay it forward. It's kind of like putting out this good positive energy into the world, and like just giving feedback is critical. And it's tough. I mean, I had a people know I like to share stories in these lives. So I had a story of, I had a candidate at Google. I think I've shared this story before, but it's probably been years. So I had a candidate at Google. They were in the interview. This is when we used to go on site to physically do interviews. And 5 minutes into the interview, the interviewer said they had to take a call. Their phone rang, and they came back with 5 minutes left in the interview. And so I got this feedback. So I approached the interviewer about it, and they said, that didn't happen. And I said, okay, let me clarify. You did not receive a phone call and step out during the interview? And they said, no, I did. And I said, well, what was the length of time? And then they started backtracking. And so it was so clear that the candidate was providing me really that feedback. So I had to directly address it with them. And then I had to tell their manager too. Uncomfortable for them, uncomfortable for me. But that interviewer will never take a call during an interview again. I can guarantee it, because they had to deal with a tough conversation with me, and I held my interviewers accountable, and then they had to deal with their manager as well. So always provide feedback. I just want to make sure that doesn't harm my chances of getting into Google in the future. It shouldn't. Again, it's pitch and tone. If it comes in a really gracious and kind way, it will be experienced that way. If it's, you said no commands, they asked for exact commands, I'm so upset, right? Like, or it could be, in my interview, what I experienced was being asked for exact commands, and reflecting back to our conversation. I believe we spoke about that not being a part of what this interviewer would cover. So I don't believe I did great in that interview because of the exact commands. Is this an interview that we can redo? Can we re-explore those questions, et cetera, et cetera? It shouldn't, as a volunteer call at Google told me, 3 to 4 interview cycles to get into Google, so keep trying. They see all your feedback. Yeah, they see all the feedback. It's a collective feedback. That's correct. It's not just one interview. Hey, Jeff, leadership role. What should I prepare for at an AM role at Google? Can you give some sample questions I should prepare around? So yeah, for an account manager role, and so again, we'll go back here. An account manager role at Google, that's the AM. It's going to be focused in on Google Ads. So bring to the table great behavioral examples. Definitely get ready for those hypothetical scenarios where a potential client has never used digital advertising services before. They're upset with their performance or utilization. When answering hypothetical questions, you have to bring in specific assumptions, meaning so many people will say upset client. It's like, well, Performance Max was underperforming for my retail client who sells flip-flops online. Now you're solving for a specific use case. Those assumptions are going to be critical. Sample questions. There's a number of different ways you can get sample questions. So one, throw the job description into GPT or Claude or Gemini or Llama and say, hey, based on this job description, create 50 practice hypothetical and behavioral interview questions. We've got to leverage AI to create practice questions for us. And of course, if you want to sign up for the AI app, and I'll throw that banner up right now. If you want to sign up for the AI app, when you put in the job description, it will create role-related questions based on that job description. So that's another way to do it. Hey, with a 20% discount on the tool, it's a pretty cheap option for interview practice, and hasn't been cheap on my end to build it. But if you want that 20% discount, it's fall 2024 today. The last thing I'll say is up your Google Ads knowledge. It's your recruiter's going to tell you don't need it, but that provides connectivity with your audience. So something I recommend. What is the difference between an account manager and an account strategist role in Google Dublin? It's a great question. There's layers. Account strategist, next step up is account manager, next step up is account executive. That's kind of the range of those roles. So they'll be the same in Google globally. Account strategist is a little bit more entry level, usually in that 2 to 4 years of experience. People usually have a little bit of ads, marketing, and sales knowledge. the account management, more management responsibilities, and potentially larger clients. It depends. And then the account executive, again, it's just moving up the levels. Sometimes there's a little bit of like, hey, if you're an account strategist, but you have 4 or 5 years of experience, you could fall on the account manager path. Account executives usually are going to be like 8+ years of experience. Practicing on the Practice Interview AI app. Awesome. It's really good and helpful. Everyone, please use it. Thank you for that. Just continue to practice using the app. And what I always tell people is people always want to know the questions. The questions aren't that important. What's really important is the foundation. Do you know how to bring structure, a method? Are you using the STAR method? Are you using CFAS? Do you know how to organize the information within that method? Are you bringing it in the right order? Are you spending enough time on each component? And then the last piece is the level of detail. We're never going to have that perfect, but we want to make sure that our detail is very, very how focused and concise. I hope that helps. Is it okay to lie in an interview? I would say never. We can not provide all the details and focus on what's positive or what highlights us in a better manner. But if you lie during an interview, you could get caught in that lie. So I never recommend it. Thanks, Jeff. Is interview warm up good for preparing for this interview? Nope. I think that interview warm up is terrible. Again, look, it's getting good feedback. Look at the feedback that interview warm up gives you. It's non-specific, and this is where I'm trying to beat out my competitors. For all the AI practice interview tools, it's a generic blurb of feedback. It's very, very general. And again, I'm not here to sell my product. Well, maybe a little bit, but what we're doing in our tool is we are literally breaking down your answers piece by piece to say, these are the pieces that you missed in the action. Like, here was what was wrong with your assumptions on a hypothetical question. We're breaking it down so you know exactly what you need to improve on. And interview warm up, to me, yeah, they built it a couple of years ago and they haven't really touched it. And it's the last time I used it, I saw no value personally. In your role at Google, did you ever come across someone who was very young for a VP and director hire position? What allowed them to advance so quickly? Not really. Director and VP at Google. Yeah, I mean, of course, in your 30s, it's definitely possible in your 30s to be a director. And VP, of course, I would say there's always outliers, but it's uncommon. And what allows most people to advance is it's communication, coupled with performance, coupled with efficiency. Those are all really, really critical items, but you need a little bit of luck too. But I never really saw a director in their 20s. Not personally. I'm sure it's happened, but those roles take significant years of experience. I hope that helps. Mock interview is cornerstone for preparing for interviews. Met a lot of PMs at Google. Meta, who also prepares over mocks, has tough timing, hard hit without practice. Yeah, and of course, practicing with other humans is always going to be valuable. If you don't have the budget for that, record yourself, use lower hanging fruit like courses or AI tools to help you. But yeah, I mean, you should always be practicing with friends, family members, current, past colleagues. Just tread lightly with that. I mean, you want to make sure that you're really practicing, but sometimes the feedback you get from non-experts can vary quite a bit. So that's just the one item that protecting in my head. I just want to say, always do mock and practice interviews. But just understand, if you're going to do it with a non-professional, just understand that audience's capabilities, and that's more about you going through the process than necessarily them giving feedback. And you can ask them for feedback on multiple items, not just your answers. How is my body language? How is my eye contact? How is my pitch and tone? Things like that, they can also give you feedback on. Customer Solutions Engineer, what is the expectations for this role? What kind of preparations do you suggest? And how long does it take results of Google assessment? So a CSE, historically CSEs had to be slightly more technical, but they've removed that. Customer Solutions Engineer definitely means that you don't have to have a CS degree, but you definitely have to have a technical background and know how to problem solve from a technical perspective. Preparation is going to be the same for every role, just with that technical piece as well. So you're absolutely going to dive in and get into the weeds on the more technical side. Then you got to practice your behavioral and hypothetical answers as well. And then after you get the results of your Google assessment, there is no timeline. If you pass, you may never hear anything. You may hear in a couple of weeks, you may hear in a day, but there's no guarantee you'll hear it all. I'm in PM leadership. There's a Slack channel for networking and practice. And yeah, and I would say we have that on our Slack channel too. People can go in and say, hey, I want to practice for X role. Does anybody want to join me? The Slack channel is slower than it was a couple of years ago, so you may not get a really fast response, but there's an opportunity there. If you want to sign up for our Slack group, it's just at practiceinterviews.com. Okay. We answered that question. Oh boy, what do I think about Finalround AI? It's a total joke. That the way that they are, and I got to be really, really tough on Finalround. Go look at Finalround AI. Look at their price point. It's 3 to 4 times more expensive, and the claims that they make. Go look at the claims on Finalround AI. Look at the claims that they make on their homepage. They're nonsense. They're not factual at all. They're 100% impossible. If their claims were correct, they'd be a multi-billion-dollar company. So there's a lot of lies there, and I got to be really tough on that competition. My tool's better. I've used their tool, and it's a lot cheaper, and I'm not making fake claims. So yeah, I hate it. I hate that they're getting press. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. It's you know that I rarely go to a negative place, but what they're putting out in the world is, I just don't like the fake data. And it's just, they're saying that like 550,000 people got jobs using their tool last month. And of course, that piece of data has not changed for months and months. If 550,000 people got jobs in the last month, what's the percent of people who actually get jobs after practicing? I mean, they're just basically saying that millions and millions and millions of people are using their tool, and no way, not at that price point. And I've used it. It's not good. Just my 2 cents. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. Thanks for listening. If someone is already working at a FAANG company, does that give them an advantage during the interview at Google or during the consideration? Maybe. It gives an advantage when we have a strong brand, when we're trying to go from Meta to Google or Google to Apple. Like, brands are credibility, and they work in trying to get our resume seen and get interviews. Once you get into the interview process, the only reason why they're helpful is large scope and scale. Your interviewer knows that you've done it in a very tough environment at a large scope and scale. So it helps a little bit, but once you're in the interview process, you're pretty much on an even playing field. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. And especially during HC, like, HC isn't going to say, well, this person worked at XYZ Corp and this person worked at Meta, so let's hire the Meta person. I never saw that, not once ever. Been doing a deep dive on all your content and love the valuable insights and knowledge you provide. Thank you so much, Nick. I wanted to ask if there's any advice you have specific to account manager associate role. An associate AM? I'm not familiar with the AM role being an associate level role. If it's an associate level role, typically associate level roles are going to be more junior level, probably more behavioral questions. Again, if we're talking about the account manager role at Google, you definitely want to have strong Google Ads knowledge going in, and then just have experience managing ads, managing like at least sales and marketing types of clients. I don't know if that answered your question. So come back. Let me know if you have more questions. I'm facing a dilemma between two offers, one from a FAANG with a great reputation and another from a smaller company where the work aligns better with my comfort level. What should I prioritize? Okay, let's talk about it. Large company, small piece. You're going to work on something very small, very niche down, and you're going to be working on something that already has established processes, strategies, etc. Smaller company, you're going to be more of a builder. You're going to be building things up from scratch, growing. And some people really love to build things up. And sometimes people like to build on top of already well-established processes. So that's a first good question to ask yourself. Here's the challenge. A FAANG company, the brand is priceless. So I always tell my personal story. Why the heck are most people here? It's because I worked at Google. Hey, I got to deal with that, right? I think that I've really evolved and grown past that data point, but the Google brand gives me credibility and I use it. And I left 6.5 years ago. 6.5 years, and I'm still leveraging that brand. Now, again, hopefully all the work and time and effort, everything I've done, all the weekends, all the nights, everything I've put into it has established that the Google experience is just in my past and I've built all the other things, but it helps. So the priceless piece of the brand is important. And then usually FAANG is going to pay better, usually. I've seen some recent Meta offers and Amazon offers that seem to have come down quite a bit. But again, that's my 2 cents. It is a tough decision for sure. Can you talk about non-tech role? Sure. Can you be a little bit more specific? What type of non-technical role? That's broad. Can we narrow the focus a little bit, please? I'm technically competent for Google role, but I have a G&L coming up and I'm very bad at recalling historical examples or making something up on the spot. How can I do better in the behavioral rounds? Okay. So you're not going to make up anything on the spot. It won't work. Okay. So here's what I love. You utilize my AI tool, you utilize GPT, whatever you want, and you ask it to create behavioral questions based on the job description. Then what happens? Then we start to answer them. Type out your answers using the STAR method. Then you throw your answer into GPT and you say, look, I feel like I'm forgetting some things that I might have done. Can you help me fill in the gaps, fill in the holes? It fills in those gaps and holes. It's crazy how it does it. Maybe you forgot to talk about the testing phase or the execution phase or the presentation stage or the documentation stage. GPT is going to pick up on that. And of course, our AI tool will capture all those items that you missed as well. But that's the best way to do it. We can really leverage AI to fill in the holes because we can't remember. I classically have not the best memory when it comes to remembering my examples and what I've done at work. And so I found that GPT and my AI tool are good at filling in those gaps for me. Does the reputation of the person that's referring you affect the overall Google interview process? No, referrals are referrals. Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Regarding the non-tech roles at Google and in Europe, Google is recruiting a lot in Dublin. Would you recommend going there even though I work in another country for Google? It's up to you. I mean, I really feel like that's such a personal decision, but here's what I love. I do love the Google Dublin office. I think it'd be hard to argue that there's not a better melting pot for all Google offices globally than Dublin. Just people from all sorts of diverse backgrounds, cultures. A lot of people have landed in Dublin from other places. And so I think it's a really, really cool office to work out of. I've never been there. I really love to visit. I've helped a number of people land in Dublin. So, but no, I think the Dublin office is really cool. So it's really a personal decision, like for you, for your family, anybody who would be impacted by that move. How would you go about getting recommended by Googlers for open roles if people in your network are mostly non-FAANG? So it's really hard to get referred if you don't know somebody. Sometimes we know somebody and we don't know that we know somebody, meaning I always want you to continually, everybody who's here, if you're looking to get referred, do those searches. Continue to do those searches like once a month, just current company, Google, or any other FAANG company that you're interested in. Just see if you know people, friends, former colleagues, classmates who have moved there. They're such big companies that happens a lot. But it's hard to get referred if you don't know people. Now you can try and build up those relationships, but I wouldn't network and ask to get referred. It's not a very strong approach. Let me know if you have more questions. Have to run. Really appreciate the advice. Thanks so much for being here, Edward. Please continue to show up 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday. This is where you'll find me. Thank you. Your answer was perfect. Okay. I've been working on multiple Skillshop certifications for Google Ads. Are there any other resources you recommend anywhere to practice with examples? Yep. Boom. Coupon code fall 2024, 20% off the AI tool. You put that account manager role into the tool and it's going to give you role related questions. So it's definitely a recommendation. How can I negotiate an offer when I have little experience, 2 years, and have earned significantly less in the past? Don't worry about it. You just talk about what you want. They may ask you to validate, well, how did you get to that number? By doing my research and speaking with people in the industry, this is my expectation. It's tough when you don't have as many years of experience to understand that. You just ask for what you want. Now, of course, it depends on the company. If it's a smaller company, we ask the question, what is your negotiation philosophy? I'm working on this with a current negotiation client now. We had 2 companies where we needed to understand their negotiation philosophy up front. So we understood it. We just asked the question, and one said they don't negotiate and the other one said they did. Okay. But you do want to understand that if you're going after a really big company, public companies, typically you can go pretty big and they're not going to rescind, typically. Jeff, following your statement, I had a recent conversation with one director of product at Amazon. They intentionally firing people to hire for the same positions at a lower compensation. Well, that's illegal. And so that sounds awful. And that person sounds awful. And I would never want to work for them. That's just a horrible, horrible practice. And if they got caught doing that, anybody who works for them, I would recommend legal action. Totally unacceptable. At Pure, I've been living in Ireland for 6 years. Great place. Also been in the Google in Dublin. Very cool offices, all of them. Awesome. Thanks for that context. But for product roles, I would prefer London, as the majority of PMs in Europe are located in Zurich and London. Okay. Very, very helpful data as well. And I think we're also thinking about the cost of living, right? And the most interesting thing is, like, I know Zurich's expensive, but it also pays the best for tech across EMEA. So Like London, cost of living and cost of labor for tech are misaligned. London is still one of the most expensive cities in the world, but the cost of labor for tech is still lower than it should be, in my opinion. So Zurich is the best paying EMEA market. So you'll get paid to really deal with the high cost of labor and living there, or sorry, high cost of living there. Great context. Okay. We are an hour and 25 minutes in. You have been a fantastic audience today. We're not done. If any additional questions come in, I'm happy to answer them, and one just did. I am going to go into my wrap up in a moment, and I'll answer as many questions as they come in. Is it possible for the HM to conduct the GNL round? 100%. They can conduct whatever round they want. So it could be GCA, GNL, RRK, no interview. They could not want to be a part of the interview process, but it's up to them. They pick. If they say, hey, I want to do GNLs for this, for my team, they can do that for sure. Okay, let's go into a wrap up. Again, if any additional comments come in today, coupon code FALL 2024, 20% off the AI tool and interview mastery course. If you know of anybody who is open to work or actively looking, if that's not you, please share this coupon code with them. We introduced modular feedback last week. We're really parsing and breaking answers apart to help make sure that users understand how to actually improve their answers. The other tools are giving you bucketed information, and it's really hard to parse through. Interviewing is hard enough. We've broken it into bite-sized pieces, and hopefully that helps. I'm still doing one-on-one interview coaching, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and one-on-one strategy sessions. That's resume, LinkedIn, and networking. I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every single Tuesday. New original content, long form on Mondays, and I'm trying to produce more shorts. Again, if you're interested in the course, still getting great feedback on that course. And we have tons of free resources at practiceinterviews.com. Downloadables. You can join our free Slack community. You can check out one of my 100 blog posts. I hit 100 blog posts. So all sorts of good stuff. All right, let's answer any last comments that come in, and then I'm going to bounce off. I have a virtual tech interview with Apple that says, wear whatever you think presents your best self in a work setting. Not sure if wearing a polo is enough. Thoughts around interview dress? Polo's great. Business casual at the high end. This is tech, right? If you're going for like a high level sales role, maybe you put on a blazer or something, but for almost all roles, a polo shirt is more than fine. We're trying to mirror our audience. And so if we're in like a suit or we're like really dressed up and they're wearing a hoodie or a t-shirt, it's not strong alignment. Business casual at the very high end is my recommendation. And of course, just like the grooming piece, right? Like just make sure we look good, but the dress itself is less important. Many companies are outsourcing or setting up their offshore units for the accounts department in India or other Asian countries just to reduce costs. In the future, do you think all companies will follow? Yep. They're pushing towards overseas and offshore, and it has always been a trend, and it will continue to be a trend. But some of those jobs will be removed when they figure out they can automate it and they don't need to pay anybody to do it. But yeah, I see that definitely as a trend that will continue to follow and grow. Thanks, boss. You are welcome. And I wish you the best of luck. Apple's obviously a phenomenal company to work for. Whew. Great session today. Everybody, thank you so much. For anybody who's still here, great engagement today. We flowed. We had a ton of questions today. And these lives are actually picking up, which is cool because it's, the summertime can be slow. I know we're kind of turning the corner and we're starting to get into fall. I think that my fall hiring predictions are slower than normal, but that we will see an uptick coming basically now in some jobs. Just historically, September through November has been a really strong time to hire. So if you're getting ready to interview, you're networking, you're in job search, get after it. Now's a great time to get after it. Let me answer this last question, then I'm going to bounce off. Thanks so much for being here. Do big tech companies match levels if one offers a higher band? No, not level matching, competing offer matching. If there's a stronger comp, yes, but like an L6 at Meta or Amazon's going to be an L5 at Google, for example. So matching levels, not so much, but if you have a competing offer, yes, they'll potentially match it or beat it. Potentially, not all the time. Thank you, everybody, so much for being here. I'll be back next week, 9 a.m. Pacific time. Look for new content in the interim. And yeah, do your best. I'm here to help. And you're the goat. I love that. Thanks, Nick. It's a good way to end. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care. Have a good one.